200 miles off the Maine coast, the longline fishing vessel Providence hauled its gear under a moonless October sky.
Hey, what the hell is that?
The line came up heavy, not with fish, but with a round glass float wrapped in modern rope, a Japanese fishing buoy from the 1950s, barnacled and worn, tied with polypropylene line that couldn't be more than a year old.
That's not possible. Glass floats haven't been used since my granddad's time.
Captain Hale stepped down from the wheelhouse, his face tightening when he saw the object.
Stow it in the gear locker. We'll deal with it in port.
That's bad luck. We shouldn't have touched it.
The crew returned to work under a sudden, oppressive stillness, the ocean glassy and dead calm. Stephen couldn't shake the feeling that they had disturbed something ancient, something that had waited a long time to be found. Stephen lifted the float, and in the deck light he saw faint Japanese characters etched beneath the barnacles.
Those are warning marks. My uncle saw something like that once. His boat nearly sank.
Come on, Leo. It's just an old buoy. Some prankster tied new rope on it.
Captain Hale stood motionless at the rail, his knuckles white, staring at the float as if it were a bomb waiting to go off.
I've never seen the captain look like that. Not panic, but something older.
Stephen carried the float to the gear locker, the glass cold in his hands, and locked it away. When he returned to the deck, the silence had grown heavier, the sea black and flat, like a held breath.
We shouldn't be out here tonight.
We'll be fine. We'll be in port in 2 days, and you can tell everyone about your ghost buoy.
But Mike's laugh didn't reach his eyes, and Stephen felt the weight of the ocean pressing in from all sides.
I can't just leave it down there like an unexploded shell.
He slipped away to the gear locker and crouched before the float. In the pitch black, it pulsed with a faint green glow.
No battery, no phosphorescence. This shouldn't be happening.
When Stephen returned to the deck, the wind had died completely. The ocean stretched out like black glass.
Even the fish stopped moving. Look at the lines, they're dead slack.
Maybe it's just a pressure drop. Happens before a blow.
No one answered. The 3 deckhands worked in a charged silence, every sound amplified.
The captain hasn't left the wheelhouse in an hour. He knows something.
The mast lamp swung gently. Though no wind moved, its arc cast shifting shadows across the deck. The stillness felt deliberate, as if the ocean itself held its breath and waited for something ancient to announce itself. Stephen climbed the narrow stair to the wheelhouse and found Captain Hale hunched over the radar, his back a wall of silence.
Captain, can I ask you something? About the float.
I said stow it. That's all there is to it.
I saw you, Captain. When you looked at that float, you didn't see junk. You saw something else. Something you were afraid of.
The captain turned from the screen, his face carved with something Stephen couldn't read. Not anger. Something closer to fear.
You don't want to go digging into things that don't belong to you. Trust me on that, Stephen. Leave it be.
It's just a buoy. Why are you treating it like a live grenade?
Because it's not the buoy. It's what it means. Now, leave it alone.
The captain stared out the window at the black glass sea. His reflection looked 20 years older, haunted by something he would never explain. The boat's clock chimed midnight. Stephen stepped onto the deck, the captain's warning coiled around him like a cold rope. He knew he wouldn't sleep that night. At 20 past midnight, a sound bled through the stillness, a rough marine engine, distant but unmistakable, growing closer.
You hear that? That's not one of ours. It sounds like a museum piece.
They scanned the black horizon. A wooden trawler without running lights materialized from the dark like a memory.
There's no one at the wheel. The wheelhouse is empty. No lights, no movement.
It came on a collision course, silent except for its motor, gliding like a ghost ship from a lost decade.
Captain, there's a vessel. No lights, no crew. 50 yards out and closing.
The trawler passed so close they saw every rusted cleat and splintered rail. No one stood on deck. No one answered. Just the engine throb.
Hey, we see you. Are you in distress? Answer me.
The phantom vessel slid into the dark and vanished as if swallowed. In the wheelhouse, Captain Hale stared at the empty sea, his hand already on the radio. Stephen gripped the rail, his heart hammering. Whatever they had just seen, it wasn't natural. And he knew it wasn't over. Captain Hale's voice cut through the wheelhouse as he grabbed the VHF microphone.
Unidentified vessel. This is Providence. Respond immediately. We have you in sight.
Nothing came back but the rush of empty air. The trawler receded, a silhouette against the black. Stephen raised his binoculars, following the ghost ship as it moved into the dark.
It's shifting, like it's made of something that can't hold form.
Then the shape blurred, shimmered, and dissolved like smoke on water.
Did anyone else see that? It just stopped being there.
Captain Hale ordered Stephen to check the radar. On the screen, a single blip appeared. No transponder code.
It's holding for a minute. Now it's gone. The screen's empty.
The captain set the microphone down with a trembling hand, his face ashen, as if staring into his own grave. Mike and Leo stumbled into the wheelhouse, their faces pale, the unspoken question hanging in the air like smoke.
It had to be a drug runner, right? No lights, unregistered boat. They didn't want to be seen.
Drug runner? You saw it vanish. That was no boat. It was a ghost from the old sailor stories.
That trawler had wooden rails. No radar dome, not even a GPS antenna. It looked like it came out of a photograph from the 1960s.
Enough. We don't know what we saw. Speculation doesn't help.
But his voice cracked, and his hands still trembled against the wheel. The captain was scared.
He's not just scared, he's hiding something. This isn't the first time he's seen something like that.
Get back to your stations. We still have a job to do.
The crew exchanged uneasy glances, then filed out into the cold night. The wheelhouse felt like a tomb. Stephen lingered a moment, watching the captain stare at the empty radar. He knew he'd get no answers from him. Not yet. The crew returned to the deck in a heavy, charged silence, the temperature dropping fast. The deck lights flickered. Once, twice, and every man froze, hands gripping the nearest solid surface.
It's just a loose connection. Happens all the time on old boats. Nothing to worry about.
The lights buzzed and flickered again, dying for a full second before sputtering back to life.
That's no loose wire. It's a warning. Something is here with us.
The electrical system was overhauled last month. There's no reason for this.
An unnatural chill seeped through their gear, as if the cold came not from the air but from the sea itself. Stephen scanned the black horizon, every nerve screaming that unseen eyes were watching from the dark. The mast lamp swung gently, its arc casting shadows that seemed to crawl across the deck of their own accord.
3 a.m. Whatever is coming, it'll be at 3 a.m. I can feel it.
The clock in the wheelhouse ticked toward 3 a.m. with a sound like a slow heartbeat. Stephen's eyes never left the stern. When the hour struck, the deck lights died. Not flickered. Died. Darkness swallowed the boat, except for the mast lamp.
Blackout. This is it. What did we pull up from the deep?
5 seconds of pure black. Then the lights buzzed back to life, revealing a shape that hadn't been there before. At the stern, a man stood motionless. He wore foul-weather gear from a different era, slick with moisture and age.
Hey, you, how long have you been there?
The man didn't acknowledge the sound. He just kept his back turned, staring into the Atlantic black.
Mike and Leo are still working forward. They haven't seen him. Am I the only one who sees this?
Stephen's voice cracked as he shouted toward the wheelhouse, But the man on the stern never wavered. The figure was real. Impossible, but real. And Stephen knew that whatever walked aboard tonight had been waiting decades. Stephen stepped closer, a question forming on his lips. The man turned his head and fixed him with hollow, knowing eyes. Without a word, he gave a single nod, a deliberate, almost friendly gesture, and then faced the black water again. He swung a leg over the rail, then the other, dropping without hesitation. He dropped. Stephen rushed forward, expecting a splash, but there was only silence. The sea swallowed him without sound. Stephen gripped the rail and stared down at the calm, dark surface. Nothing. No ripple. No trace.
He was real. He looked at me. He nodded. And now he's gone without so much as a bubble. This is impossible. I have to get the captain.
Stephen tore away from the rail and sprinted toward the wheelhouse, his boots pounding the deck. He burst through the wheelhouse door, gasping, the image of those hollow eyes seared into his mind.
Captain, there's a man on the stern. He just walked off into the water.
Captain Hale turned from the window, all color draining from his face, as if he'd seen a ghost. He didn't ask for details. He crossed the wheelhouse in 2 strides, seized Stephen's shoulder and pulled him close.
Don't tell the others. He shows up sometimes. He doesn't take anyone if you don't ask him to.
The words came out in a harsh whisper, each one measured and freighted with old terror.
Ask him to what? Take me where? He knows this man. He's seen him before.
Stephen could only nod, his voice stolen by the weight of the captain's grip and the madness of the moment. The captain released him and turned back to the helm, his reflection in the window a mask of exhaustion and grief. He said nothing more. The silence in the wheelhouse felt like a held breath before a plunge.
I am carrying a secret I can't tell Mike or Leo. Something is haunting this boat, and the captain knows its name.
Stephen stumbled out of the wheelhouse, the captain's warning coiled around him tighter than any rope. The night stretched on like a held breath. Stephen returned to the deck and worked the lines in a trance, the captain's words echoing louder than the engine.
Stephen, you look like you've seen a ghost. What happened in the wheelhouse?
Nothing. Just tired. Long night.
Funny. The captain hasn't looked toward the stern all night. Something wrong back there.
Stephen ignored Leo's stare and fixed his eyes on the gear, his mind a storm of hollow eyes and whispered warnings. When the first gray seeped over the horizon, the unnatural stillness cracked. The sea began to move again, but the relief was thin. Over the intercom, the captain's voice cut in, hoarse and final.
We're turning for port. Secure the gear. No questions.
What? We barely filled half the hold, Captain. That's a 2-day trip cut to 1.
The boat swung its bow homeward. Stephen stood at the rail, the secret a cold weight in his chest, knowing the sea was not done with them yet. The Providence nosed into her slip under a gray mid-morning sky. The crew unloaded the catch in silence, each man eager to be gone.
Well, that was the strangest trip of my life. I need a drink. See you next trip. Stephen.
If I were you, I'd find a different boat. Something followed us home. Mark my words.
Stephen lingered by the gear shed. He watched Captain Hale unlock a rusted locker and carefully place the glass float inside, not with the other equipment.
He's hiding it, not from the crew, but from someone else or something.
Later, near the dock office, Stephen heard the captain's voice through a cracked window. The tone pulled him up short.
Yes, it happened again. No, we didn't say anything. He came this time. Nobody asked, so he just left.
He's been talking to someone about this for years. This isn't a one-time thing. Who else knows?
Stephen backed away from the window. He couldn't unhear what he'd just heard. He couldn't let it go.
I need to find out who that man was, and why the captain is so terrified of him. The answers are here somewhere.
Stephen spent the afternoon walking the docks, asking old fishermen about ghost trawlers and glass floats. Most shook their heads and walked away. One retired sailor, mending nets on the pier, muttered a warning about names better left unfound, then turned away.
They're all scared. Whatever happened, it left a scar on this whole town.
He drove to the public library and spent hours scrolling through microfilm archives, the hum of the machine the only sound. He searched maritime databases and old newspaper archives, typing in the name Providence. The headline from October 1962 read, "Fishing vessel Providence lost at sea with all hands." Stephen stared at the screen, his pulse hammering as he scrolled further. The article detailed the mysterious disappearance of the Providence and its crew, naming Captain Arthur Hale.
Hale, the captain's last name. That can't be a coincidence. I need to see a photograph. There has to be one somewhere.
That night, Stephen returned to the gear shed with a bolt cutter and snapped the captain's lock. He lifted the float from its hiding place and held it under a workbench light.
Japanese characters I can't read, and underneath, scratched in English, Providence.
He photographed every marking, his phone's shutter echoing in the silent shed.
This float came from that boat. Now I need to see the faces.
In his rented room, he searched deep into maritime digital archives, hunting the name Providence. An archive website held a collection of historical fishing vessel records, with a form for photograph requests.
One photograph is all I need. Arthur Hale's face. Then I'll know.
He submitted the request and watched the confirmation message fade to black. Somewhere, in a museum or private collection, the truth waited behind glass, and Stephen was now only days away from finding it. 2 days later, an email from the Maritime Archive pinged Stephen's phone. They had a single photograph of the Providence, taken April 1962, donated by a family member. The archive resided in a small maritime museum 2 towns away. Policy prevented emailing the image, but he could view it there.
A museum I've passed 100 times. Now it holds the only answer that matters.
He stared at the email, the cursor hovering. Going there would cross a line he couldn't uncross.
If I see that face and it's him, I'll know the captain has been lying for decades.
He typed a brief reply confirming his visit for the next morning, then shut the laptop. That night, sleep never came. The hollow eyes from the stern watched him every time he closed his own. At dawn, he climbed into his truck and headed for the coast road, the gray Atlantic stretching endlessly to his left.
I am doing exactly what the captain warned me not to do, and I can't stop.
The museum materialized through the fog, its windows dark, the sea a gray roar behind it. Stephen stepped into the dim museum. The air was thick with salt and the weight of old wood. An elderly curator appeared. Without a word, she led him past exhibits to a back room, then left him alone with a manila folder. He opened the folder with trembling hands. Inside, a single photograph waited. The black and white image showed the Providence, her crew lined up, and in the center, beaming, was the man from the stern.
It's him. The same hollow eyes, the same face. He died 60 years ago.
The date on the back read April 1962. Every detail matched. The vintage gear, the confident stance.
How is this possible? He was on my boat. He nodded at me.
Stephen sank into the chair. The silence of the museum pressed in.
Captain Hale knew. The same last name. He's been hiding this for decades.
He turned the photo over and over, as if the answer might reveal itself. But the dead only keep their secrets. The curator returned, carrying a steaming mug. Her smile was kind, but her eyes held a familiar weight.
Ma'am, can you tell me about the man in this photo? Captain Arthur Hale.
She set the mug down and touched the photo lightly. A shadow passed over her face. "He was a good man," she murmured. "Lost too young. His brother never got over it."
His brother, Arthur Hale, had a brother.
The curator nodded, adding that the younger brother still lived nearby, a retired fisherman who had never spoken about that night.
Captain Hale, his own brother. The man who stepped off the stern is his blood. He's been carrying this for 60 years. The warning, the fear, it's all family.
Stephen thanked her and stood. The photograph was no longer just evidence. It was a testament to decades of silent grief. He had to bring this to Captain Hale. Not as an accusation, but as a key to a door that had been locked too long. Stephen drove straight to the docks, the photograph burning in his pocket like a signal fire. Captain Hale was alone on the Providence, cleaning gear with the slow, deliberate strokes of a man who had no place else to be. Without a word, he climbed aboard. The captain looked up, and Stephen held the photograph out, letting the black and white image speak for itself. The brush clattered to the deck. Captain Hale froze, his eyes locking on the face in the photo, as if he'd been struck. He lunged for the photograph, but Stephen pulled it back, his jaw set and his heart racing.
It's your brother, isn't it? The man who stepped off the stern, Captain Arthur Hale.
All strength seemed to leave the old man. He sagged onto a deck bench, his face folding into a grief that had no name.
You shouldn't have dug into this. Nobody should. It only brings pain.
You've been carrying this alone for 60 years. Why, Captain? Why does he keep coming back?
I don't know why. I've spent decades trying to send him away, but he just appears. Sometimes. And if you don't ask him to take you, he just leaves without a trace. I am done. I can't do this anymore.
A week later, Stephen stood on the pier and watched the Providence lifted from the water for the last time. Her hull dripped like old tears. Captain Hale emerged from the wheelhouse carrying a cardboard box, his frame smaller, his movements slow. He looked like a man leaving behind more than a boat. He loaded the box into his truck and paused, a hand on the rusted hood, staring at the sea one final time. Stephen watched from the dock. Across the distance, their eyes met. No words passed, only a shared burden of the unspeakable. The captain gave the faintest nod, then climbed into the truck and drove away without looking back.
60 years of silence. And he's still carrying it. Will I carry this too?
Stephen slipped his hand into his pocket and felt the photograph's worn edge. The truth he had sought now felt like a stone. He turned his back on the sea and started walking, the harbor sounds fading behind him. He didn't know if he would ever set foot on a boat again, but he knew the sea would never look the same, and somewhere in the mist, the Providence's mast lamp flickered once and went dark. Months later, Stephen worked in a marine supply store far from the fishing docks. The smell of salt never left his clothes. He stocked ropes and hooks, his hands remembering the weight of a long line. The sea was a distant memory now. On foggy nights, he walked to the town pier and stared at the black water. He went there when he couldn't sleep. The photograph stayed in his wallet, folded beside his driver's license. He never showed it to anyone.
Sometimes I hear a distant engine, a low throb from the mist. I look, and there's nothing.
He stood until the cold seeped through his jacket, then walked home past shuttered shops and silent street lamps. At the pier's end, a ragged hat hung on a piling. It looked like the kind the captain used to wear. He didn't touch it. He just stared, remembering the man who stepped into the sea without a sound. The foghorn sounded, and for a moment the air seemed to thicken. Then the moment passed. He turned away, the photograph in his pocket as heavy as an anchor, the sea whispering behind him. On a night of thick fog, Stephen stood at the pier's end. The foghorn crooned its lonely note across the black water. Far out on the water, a darker shadow formed, a vessel without lights. A silent shape sliding through the mist. For a moment, he saw a figure at the rail, still watching. The same old foul-weather gear, the same hollow silence.
It could be memory. It could be the fog. I am not sure anymore.
He didn't move, didn't call out. He just watched the image waver and dissolve as the fog thickened. For a breath, the mist and the memory seemed to form a face, Arthur Hale's face, superimposed on the dark sea. Then the fog swallowed everything. The sea became a blank gray slate, and the pier was just a pier again. Stephen turned and walked home, the photograph in his pocket, the weight of it as familiar as his own heartbeat. He never told anyone about that night. Some truths the sea gives back, and some it keeps forever. And somewhere on the Atlantic, under a moonless sky, a mast lamp flickers once, and a man in old gear steps over the rail without a sound.